Sonic Talk.
Hello everybody and welcome to Sonic Talk episode 532. It's a post Superbooth one, and given the size and intensity of the show, it's actually, there's a lot to talk about. This was the big show in Berlin that happened over last weekend. We were there, two of our three guests were there, and we have an innocent bystander who I'm looking forward to getting their thoughts on it. It was a great show. It's run by Mr. Schneider's. And yes, anyway, we'll get on. I just want to say thank you very much to our show sponsors. They're providing the prize. iZotope, you can win a copy of Neutron 2, which is the excellent mix and channel processing software, which gives you all kinds of plug-in deliciousness, dynamic EQs, dynamics, gating, spectral shaping, all kinds of good stuff. So we want to say hello to our YouTube chatties. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get notified when we're live. We usually go live probably 20 minutes before the show, so you should have plenty of time to pull over on the motorway or make an excuse to your boss to go home early, all of those things that you need to do. And also IRC, sonicstate.com/live. Yes, it's a podcast to do with music technology. And I forgot to mention, if this is your first time and you just happened across us somehow in some kind of random fashion. So anyway, let's get started. We'll start with our guests. First of all, we'll just say hello to Mr. Jamie Liddell, who is there in Nashville.
Hello.
He wasn't at Berlin Superbooth, but bizarrely used to live in Berlin and work in Berlin at the earlier Superbooth venue of the Funkhaus, which we didn't go to. How are you, Mr. James?
Yes. Excellent. Greetings from the Wooden Room.
The Wooden Room, yes. In the Wood Room, we have Jamie Liddell. That's right. How have you been? What have you been up
to? Not a great deal, actually. I'm building another sample pack for Splice. That's my second Splice pack. So I always take these things on thinking, yeah, great, man. Build some samples. Then I'm up till like midnight just chopping up little basically what I've been doing is running various noises through the time modulator and then just kind of, they call it the Marshall time waster back in the day. And I'm starting to understand why.
Recouping some of that massive investment, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, exactly. Well, but that's me. I've been lost in time.
Quite literally. Well, we've been lost in Berlin. So my other two guests have as well, because I've also got Mr. Div Kid Ben Wilson, who we also saw. Hello. Not that often, though. Our paths didn't cross all that much. I kept seeing you on the stairs on the way to somewhere, and it would be a brief hello. But Div Kid Ben Wilson, of course, was there covering the show in his fashion as well, with his mate. Are they? Would you call your associates your team, or are they just happy Superbooth goers that just helped out?
Team, I guess. We've been a little bit silent lately, but me, Matthew and Greg started a thing called Modular podcast a while ago. Fairly modular focused, mega nerdy. There might be 2 hours of talk on ways to use envelopes or some, we just super geek out for us. So yeah, we kind of go over and do that together. I did saw a little bit of you with camera rig and already mid-conversation. One thing, did you notice the clocks were in sync this year down the
some of them
kind of
yes
end? Yeah, they'd cabled under the rug. They'd taken a rug, cabled underneath, and in big black tape they'd put sync right across the whole rug, which really did take the edge off, even if they were slightly out of key or maybe not playing two complementary parts together. There were 4 of them manufacturers in sync.
That's a great idea. Was it to do with this guy, the VPME clock? Because he was one of the guys who shouted the when I said this is what happens. Last year I did this is what happens when your clocks are in sync, and I didn't get the chance to go back and see him, but he did give me this rather excellent module, which is basically post-its on a stuck on a I guess what's that, an 8 or a 12 HP module. And I wanted to apologise. It's Victor, I think it is, and we did end up having a few beers on the Saturday night. And Vlad, that's right. Sorry, Vlad. That's presumably what the V was. So anyway, but he did a wireless one that worked over Bluetooth and would sync with what's the live thing? That one, Link. And that was pretty cool. So yeah, there was more clock syncing, which I think is a really, really good idea. So, Ben, just before we wrap this section up, did you Did you, I mean, you've done a load of modular stuff. You're not so often on camera. Did you find a lot of selfies were happening during the show? Because I've never been quite so photographed. And if I'd known, I'd award something a bit more presentable.
Yeah, quite a lot of can I get a photograph, which, you know, yeah, fine if that's what people want. More than last year. And someone had a Polaroid, actually, and then handed me the picture. He took a couple and then handed me a Polaroid of me, Matthew and Greg that I was filming with, and one of the Australian modular guys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not so much on camera, but I was flailing around and being stupid and saying silly things to people while they were trying to present gear. Which I'm good at.
Excellent. We got a couple of other. We got a couple of other selfies. I'll just show you. There was this thing. So in the space of 10 minutes, we got. I got Look Mum No Computer, who'd literally just got out of his van after driving for 20 hours straight from London, and then 10 minutes before that, where was it? Mr. Andrew Huang as well. We'd just done an interview in the park, so I did 2 of those, and I thought, it'd be interesting to see which one's more popular. Thinking Andrew Huang massively because he's got such a huge following. Tell you what, 488 likes to 677. So look, man, certainly with our audience anyway, seems to bring it. Anyway, Gaz, how are you? You were there too, and you were in full Gaz mode. You were like Tigger. We were calling you Tigger behind your back because you were so bouncy and full of energy. Fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was actually called by the Times back in 2013 the human Tigger, funnily enough. That was my first mention in the Times. Yeah, so there's definitely some correlation going on. How was Superbooth? Superbooth was absolutely amazing. And if any of you are not there next year, I tell you what, you should be ashamed. Everyone should come. It gets it unbelievably right. It becomes like an exciting festival that just happens to have gear around there. And the spirit, you know, it's proper spirit going on. It's the kind of thing you go looking for. It was amazing. The coming together of all this like-mindedness, the friendliness, and just the excitement, the tangible excitement is brilliant. It's so easy to kind of think of these trade shows as kind of corporate kind of, you know, orgies. But this was something special, you know. This is like pure. It's like, wow, I'm in this massive international community, and it's this feeling of togetherness. It's just, yeah, that blew me away. That was amazing. And just want to say thank you to just the amount of love, you know. It was amazing. So much.
I would agree with that.
It was fantastic.
It really was. I mean, and just to sort of, the Superbooth started off live, in case you didn't know, it started off live as Schneider's Bureau. It's a very famous modular dealer, and he used to bring together some of the people that he'd distribute and bring them to Music Messa to begin with, where he'd a bigger booth and bring them all on board because they couldn't really organise or afford to have their own booth, and it just got bigger and bigger, and then eventually he just went, you know what, I'm going to do a show, and this is the 3rd year, and Herr Schneider's is a very unique and unusual individual, brilliant guy, absolutely brilliant.
I heard a most amazing story about him. I heard him variously described as being an artist and a visionary and all these kind of things. But the best story I heard was apparently, I think this might be a Ken Macbeth story, but he invited a load of people to a party. And it was this kind of obscure address, and people came to this party, and it was like this really not a very nice place. And they were like, why have we come here for this party? And next thing they hear this enormous noise, and opposite, this building gets demolished. And he timed the party because he knew that demolition was going to happen when everyone was at the party.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Here's Herr Schneider right here. Here's him on the left, not in uniform, but with a fantastic shirt. And that's an unfortunate example of Instagram's auto cropping. So there were actually 4 people in that photograph, but only 3 turned up.
He's just so full of this amazing sort of, just personality and joyfulness. It was a real pleasure to meet him. But
yeah, and
I mean, you know, that's the.
Yeah, no, it is, sorry. And he's got the largest hands of any human being I've ever encountered. He's like, you know, I don't know, he's kind of farming stock or something, and his hands are, my hands are small, so his hands are probably twice the size of mine, and really sort of...
And the irony is he's like got all that Euro rack.
Yeah, that is bizarre.
He's like big with it. It's just kind of like, no wonder he sells it, he can't actually use it.
I'm surprised he's not a 5U guy, really, yeah. Well spotted there, Jamie. I
remember back in the day when I used to go and see him in the early days of his bureau, just in Kreuzberg, and you know, who would have thought he'd take it all this way? But there are characters like that in Germany that are just, you know, they have the DIY punk thing, but they add together this crazy energy and sort of motivation that often you don't associate with punks. You sort of imagine punks just sitting around hating things. But I think the ones I met in Germany are all kind of, you know, a lot of them are kind of really motivated to just do the thing that they do, which is often pretty easy. And in this case, it just happened to sort of, you know, it's really caught, hasn't it? It's like, it's bizarre to see all the news stories of a Superbooth. The vast majority of them are like, you know, in a way.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
There's so much activity.
Exactly, so much. And I suppose that's probably a good start. I suppose. Sorry, Gas. Yeah.
I was just going to say, though, the thing they also did was they put on parties afterwards, and there was other parties going on in the night. And like that place, Sea Base, where there was a bunch of parties going on, was just one of the most incredible places I've ever been. It was like partying on this in Red Dwarf, in the set of Red Dwarf. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. And it was amazing. I mean, it was such an amazing party. I missed my flight home because I went to this party. I got in 10 o'clock in the morning, and my phone had run out ages ago. It ran out ages ago, you know, because it was a long, long night. Got in, managed to find my way back, though, to the Airbnb, which I was well in the east. Note to self, stay to the west. Stay to the west of Superbooth, because everyone goes to the west, and I'd gone to the east. So anyway, I finally got in, and I come into the room. I just must have just gone out for the count, you know. But that's the thing. I don't care. I had such a great time, and that party, wow. Cenk was playing. Cenk from Electron, Mr. Dataline, you know. And he is just so, I mean, seeing him do the product demonstrations is one thing, but he could just build a beautiful live set. He just really knows how to make a kind of completely engaging musical set that's constantly evolving and changing. And he doesn't know exactly where he's going to go with it. It's always kind of, he builds it as he goes.
He's the guy who knows how to work it that well. You're absolutely right. We've got a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, I'm going to start with the video that was the biggest by quite a long way from us. So let's just begin with a little bit of this.
Well,
something different, Pete.
Something a little bit different from us. We did a synth, and we said we were going to do drum machines, and here's an R&D prototype. It's obviously based upon one of our favourite drum machines of all time, the 808. Very, very similar. Really, I mean,
it's big. It's not little, is it?
It's heavy as well. It kind of reminds me of my favourite drum machine, which is a 626, which is something I remember going buying as a teenager. Right,
so there it is, the surprise. Behringer were showing, you know, a lot of. They showed a number of things. That was the first one to sort of come out of the woods, and you know, it's an analog 808 clone. I mean, but it's also got a transient designer in it, and a 2-mode Moffat filter, so a 2-pole. So I think it's maybe it's 4-pole, but it's high pass and low pass filters. I don't know who's into 808s. I mean, obviously Roland got their boutique out, but this was a bit of a shock, actually. I mean, I didn't know this was coming at all. I think a lot of people, this was one of the first of many surprises. It's an interesting concept because Roland said it couldn't be done, and looks like they've done it. I don't know how you... have you got an 808, Jamie? Is it something you hanker after? I'd imagine you'd be a guy who would have one if you wanted one.
Yeah. That does sound good. Now, by the time I was kind of aware of them, you know, they'd already started to be kind of naughty prices, and you know, who knew they were going to get like way naughtier than that? But you know, this was at the time when you could pick up like a Jupiter 8 for like, you know, 300 quid. There was a time, you remember that time? There was like a time when people were shedding all of that stuff. I mean, I'm showing my age here, but yeah, I should have picked an 808 up then. But I do feel a little bit. I can't. I mean, I did just buy the time modulator, but not many people have those. I mean, that's the thing. I kind of feel with an 808, I probably would get a clone, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to spend on the real thing, and you know, they all sound different.
Can I cut in there? You see, because that's the thing that's kind of 808 is. There's like two departments in Behringer. There's one that's kind of just doing the more straighter clones, and then there's the kind of Midas dudes who just are refusing to do the straight clones, so they're having to go we're not just going to we're going to make it better. And I think that's what's really interesting about this, just having that master filter. What was it? The wave shaper thing on the left, Nick? What was that exactly?
Well, it's a transient shaper.
Transient
again,
shaper.
analog transient shaper / compressor that is.
But that you could put on any of the, well, you could choose which tracks went through that, whereas everything went through the filter, but also just the whole kind of layout. I mean, recently I did the review of the boutique, so what that entailed for me was really having to get familiar with the workflow of the original 808, which I'd never ever properly done before. So it was just really interesting to go, well, actually, why clone the bits that are not so good? Why not have a crack at making a better version of the 808? And I think I think is the thing that's most interesting to me.
Yeah,
and also the fact it sounded the real deal. I got to be honest.
It did sound good. I should point out, we asked Pete whether or not that they were going to work on real-time record and do some workflow stuff, because one of the guys that's in the Midas team is really into drum machines. So I think there's going to be more to it. So it won't just be that sort of step time thing. Although they are going to stuck with the interface they've got, I suppose. But yeah,
well, it's interesting. They did it with the Deep Mind, though, didn't they? You know, the brief was to sort of bring back the Juno, and they brought out the Deep Mind, which is something phenomenal else, really, synth. Yeah. So, you know, hopefully that we'll see something like that go on with this. So I think it is actually a bit more exciting than perhaps, you know, thinking of it as just simply a clone. And was a price point discussed?
No, but I can't imagine it's going to be exceptionally expensive. I mean, you know, that's.
Well, they seem to be they're fixating on this $300, sort of like as though that's the kind of golden price point. So wouldn't it be interesting if it came in for $300?
It would be
€300.
Ken Flux Pierce in the chat room is just saying yes. Not all the synths are done by the Midas team. That's very true. I think the Pro one, which was also shown, and the MS 101, which was also shown, and the RS. Whatever it is, was also shown is not. Ben, what do you reckon? Because you got the scoop on the Odyssey as well, didn't you? But did you check out the 808?
I didn't get a chance, but I did watch your video in the hotel room, and I like that they've added a couple of extra things. The big thing with the 808 is I think so many people have spent a lot of money on them. Maybe people that have been DJing old electro, really used to the sound of, you know, the music made on 808s. And they get one, you know, they're dropping about £2,500 on one at the minute, and it doesn't sound like what the records do, because as we all would with most drums, there's compression and EQ and some saturation, and I like that they've just thrown it on there, and the ability to choose which ones hit that transient designer, which made me think of the SPL transient designer, but it's kind of compression in a way as well. So, you know, whether you want the kick to hit it or just, I mean, I don't know why you just hit the hi-hats in it, but you know, some control, some range, some filtering is a kind of nice performance thing. And I think, you know, my personal take on it is that others have had a long enough time to maybe redo an analog version of the Roland one. They've got some hindsight as well. You know, there's years of clones and official and not official clones in modular and desktop and software, and they've kind of had a chance to go, let's make this a bit bigger. Let's put these couple of extra things on there that's going to make it tweakable and performable.
I would have liked to have seen, I must admit, I was surprised there wasn't any kind of tuning for the bass drum and tuning for the toms. Where's it tuning for the toms? I can't remember. But, you know, the stuff that you now see in kind of modern recreations, which have, you know, the ability to tune certain aspects of it. I
think it'll change. I think it will change as it develops. I don't think what we saw there is how it'll come out.
That's a shame. I'd like to see the Tipex font. I think that would look really good.
Yeah.
It would be cool if they added like some kind of MIDI in, so you could kind of use it as a bunch of almost individual drum modules. You could send in like notes just to the kick and sort of essentially sequence externally. Then basically, because a lot of hip hop and stuff, you just use that. You basically only use.
I didn't notice whether it had any MIDI on it. It had. It did. It had. I think it has, because it had a USB socket, so it would have MIDI on it. But I don't know whether
every sound had its own MIDI channel.
I see what you mean.
I did a little.
Sorry, guys, go.
I did a little. We did a little follow-up video, and I ran off with it down the corridor, and it was just being stupid.
Where's that video?
Ran off with it.
It's online. Yeah, it's up there.
I
haven't got it immediately to hand.
I'd handed it over. I could feel like a component going. so just kind of thinking, perhaps, and then midway through the demo, it stopped working. So I was like, I went back the next day. I was like, oh gosh, I'm really sorry. Did I break it? But they said, no, it's fine. We got it working. It's all cool. I was just like,
yeah,
oh, no.
well, it was a production. It's not just a sort of general.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, that was by far the biggest one. Ben.
Just really quickly to put in there, Rob Belcham is in the YouTube chat, who's one of the Midas designers, saying we've just added the kick tuning, the clap offset, and hi-hat filter mods.
Oh, cool.
So Gaz is spot on. He's going to keep developing on the YouTube.
Right. Oh yeah. Cool. Nice.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, cool.
Rob is yeah. Excellent. Well, hello to Rob.
I'd love some CV over that bass drum, even if it's just a single CV for the bass drum. Well, as well as MIDI, but CV would be more useful.
Get him while he's there.
Yeah. Let's have a quick straw poll. So yeah, I think they were talking August. I mean, that was the sort of projected time. I don't know. You know, it's always the last kind of 10%, isn't it? That takes the time. So I don't know if that's.
They're going to do it at 808, aren't they? They're going to do it at 808.
Yeah. 8th of the 8th, yeah, they'd have to, wouldn't they? That's a good call. Yeah, absolutely. That's a date to aim for. Right, okay, let's just quickly have a word from our friends over at iZotope. This is Neutron 2, which has got, as it says, 6 award-winning processors. We've got EQ, a multiband EQ, a dynamic EQ, there we go, multi-band dynamic EQ, which is really, really useful for just fixing little things that pop out once in a while. Lots of tweakability, soft saturation. Oops, wrong fader. And there's also multi-band compressors as well. I think this has got spectral shaping. I'm trying to remember. Vintage and modern modes. I mean, really, if you're processing, it's like, think about it as the most fully featured channel strip you're ever likely to encounter. Fully featured gate. Hysteresis hold smooth gating, really useful. Multiband transient shaper, speaking of which again can add all sorts of punch and soften things that perhaps are a bit hard. Multiband excite, I mean, there is so much in the Neutron package, it's well worth checking out the sorry, someone just reached in for the phone there. Well worth checking out. If you go to iZotope.com/Neutron, you can check out, I think there's a 10-day free demo. And if you do any mixing at all or any processing, I mean, this whole podcast goes through Neutron at the final stage. The live stream goes through Neutron in real time. Really, really useful. Great for getting all kinds of sounds if you look for the FM sound or repairing or just sweetening. Well worth checking out. So we had a competition, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. So we asked you for the track assistant, the hashtag track assistant, the hashtag Neutron. And the winner is someone called Just Mull, who on Twitter is at JustMull01. One assistant for each of my tracks. Thanks. So if you want to get in touch, JustMull at JustMull101, you have won the last copy of Neutron. If you want to enter for this week's competition, we're looking for the hashtag mix masking meter, because it also has that feature, so you can actually sort of visually see what where the crowded frequencies are in your mix, which you might not be able to hear on your speakers. So the hashtag mix masking meter, the hashtag Neutron to at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. via Twitter. So that's the hashtag mix masking meter, God, I can't say that very fast, and the hashtag Neutron2 to at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc., and you'll be entered to win. So, what did I have next on the list? Gaz, I think you'll probably be pleased about this.
Hi, Peter. Hi, how are you? We're here at the Polyend booth. You've got the Medusa here, right? Which is Dreadbox and Polyend's collaboration, right?
Exactly.
This thing
is
is
something
crazy,
we've been working
crazy.
for the last 9 months, and we're waiting for this Superbooth reveal for all those 9 months.
Now, I'm going to jump in there because I spoke to Piotr and he was saying, you know, I'm always the first to jump on comments when people just talk and talk and talk and don't demo. And he said, I just did that in the Sonicstate video. And he was really, but it was all very interesting stuff. But essentially, this is the collaboration between Dreadbox and Polyend. And it, on paper, I mean, it's got this, it's astonishing. So the synthesis engine, 3 analog oscillators, 3 digital oscillators, 5 LFOs, 5 envelopes, a bunch of other stuff. A multi-mode filter. I think it's it's polyphonic up until the filter, so it's got VCA per voice, but it hasn't got a polyphonic filter. But then you've got the sequencer where you can essentially store the amount is track motion effectively. So, but you can store an entirely new patch per step, and it's just. I think it's going to be €999, which I think is almost, you could almost pay that just for the synth, and I think it seems like a buy. It's absolutely rammed full of features. I'm going to come to you, Jamie, first, just because you've got a Seek. I saw one there, and I've seen that showing up in a lot. I've seen a lot of people using those for live stuff. Are you thinking about this?
I'm not, but that's only. Well, I might actually. I might be entering back into the live stream. So yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to look at, a beautiful thing to use. Super flexible. Yeah, I love it. I love all the build stuff. I frequently talk with Mr. Polyend, and he's wonderful. He's always super fast and responsive, and he really cares. And I think it all comes across. That enthusiasm is pretty infectious. Just even watching him talk about the product and how buzzing he is. It's pretty undeniable. They just didn't stop, did they? They were like, what else can we do? Let's try and do this. He understands the modern world. Like, you can't just put out a synth with a bit of a sequencer on it. It's just no one's gonna be buzzing. He's so right. He's created a buzz because he knows what's going on. He's listened to people, and they've got the skills to do it. So yeah, hats off, man. It's looking really rad. I want one.
I must admit, I think it looks pretty good. Gaz, I know because you got a preview of this at NAMM. You got to see it before anybody else, and I didn't know what it was until literally the day it came out. Because I saw it the day before. They said, I went to see Yanis. He wouldn't do a demo, but he said, do you want to see something? And he showed me, and he gave me the lowdown. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Look, I mean, something I thought was really cool here, though, is two, relative very small manufacturers coming together and making something that take on the biggest and best in the industry. That's what's exciting, I think. Just and this is definitely driven by this. Polyend are very smart guys. I'm totally intrigued to see what they're going to be doing in the future. But anyway, back to the Medusa. Something you have to bear in mind with the Medusa: those 64 pads on the left, each one of them not only is an XYZ pad, each one. So you can have each one of them pads, and you can have you could store in each one of those pads a preset. You can make a preset. You can save it to one of those pads. But you can save it with the notes on as well. So you can kind of store. You could make like a melody up and have each note with all different kind of parameter settings on there. And then, but each note, then you could have filter on the Y. Whatever you wanted it to do, pitch across the X or whatever.
Impressive.
Wow.
It's really impressive, isn't it? Really impressive. I have to agree.
Yeah, and it is kind of it's the form factor's really nice. It's quite big but not too big. It's just sort of, I think they've just got it. It looks sexy as well. It's got really kind of nice appeal to it. Totally modern. I think Jamie's absolutely right. I think this is a completely now product, really. And the fact that they've put those digital oscillators in.
Oh look, 448 likes for a picture of the Medusa, which is almost as many as Andrew Huang got. But there was a little bit of controversy. Some people, they weren't sure whether it would be, whether you should have a left-hand pad or a right-hand pad. I don't know, Ben, you saw this. I mean, it's not quite in your mode because it doesn't really have an awful lot of control. I was thinking there's not much CV or anything or any. It's just a MIDI in and out, isn't it, on that thing, and USB as far as I can tell.
Yeah, personal interest in it, but in terms of Superbooth, just had a ton of work to get through all the modular stuff and people I'm working with. So I didn't get. In fact, I pretty much walked past it a few times without chance. The left-right thing's interesting. I don't know I'm right-handed, but I don't know which way I'd want to play it. But if it's it's an instrument, and it's a very capable instrument, and I think we could learn to play it. I don't think it really matters which side it's on. It does look sizable, and I'd mirror what Gaz and Jamie said. It looks like a modern synth, playable. I'm sure it will sound great. The other Dreadbox stuff I've heard sounds great. Polyend sequencing and the accuracy of that is amazing. You mentioning that there's several VCAs but only filter. I'm a bit geeky, but I'm curious as to where they are in the signal path, because if all the VCAs come before the filter, you've potentially got some dynamic saturation into the filter, rather than the oscillators just hitting it full pelt. And then that gets really a bit more exciting for me. If you envelope the sound through a VCA first, the peak of the envelope you can make sure clips, but then, you know, a lower sustain won't have it clip.
Interesting.
It's a question that comes up a bit, you know, with Modular, should I put the VCA before or after the filter? And the usual thing is put it at the end and just control the final shape, but there's no kind of reason not to put it beforehand. Both is ideal. But yeah, I'd love to get my hands on one. It looks very, very good.
It does, and I think from what I heard a little bit. There is, I don't know, I didn't see anybody else's demo. I'm sure, you know, because the thing is we're under pressure to get things first. So quite often what happens is we get it first, and the people aren't really they haven't got their chops up together, because if it's a brand new product, they haven't kind of spent the time working on the demos, because quite often, you know, they get it through the door just in time. In fact, we were going to try and do something with them on the Wednesday, sort of pre-show, but they said, well, we've got to program some patches in it and stuff, you know, that it's really that empty of things. So it's something to bear in mind, you know, when you kind of moan about perhaps a demo isn't so great. It's often because, you know, A, we need to get it first, and B, they want it to get it out there. So there's a compromise to be made there. So, you know, if there will be other demos along shortly. I wanted to come back to you, Ben. I mean, because we haven't been talking very modular, have we? So just a quick sort of interjection on, you know, for you, I mean, I know there was a lot of stuff. Ed did a lot of things. I don't generally cover the modular stuff, though I did a bit. I mean, what were the highlights from your point of view? And I'll see if I can find the videos.
Yeah, a few things really. I mean, personal highlight was codec at Erica Sims, who was just coiled and primed and ready to go as some sort of coiled up snake techno machine ready to pounce at any moment. I'd heard a few patches he'd done on other people's systems outside of Erica Sims. We did a demo with them on their techno kind of 6U techno case with drums and a basic synth voice and things. About 9:30 in the morning, and he was just absolutely on it. And then I was going around the rest of the event, and someone said, "Oh, we can't demo this patch yet. I've got to sit with this all morning and figure out what's going on." Codec was round. It was like this unsung hero of patching up Modular. But yeah, the Erica Sims techno drum system, the Black Noir that you covered from Endorphin. Just in terms of scaling back these huge modular drum systems that could, in some ways, be more easily replaced with a drum machine. I really like what they did. Some performable mutes, some onboard effects, a couple of tunable things per voice, and it was CR78 based instead of 808 or 909, which seems really odd, but they just took that idea of there's one noise source and we're going to make a clap and some hats and some cymbals from this one shared noise source. So it had a really kind of common top end, but the bass drum was all reworked, and it just didn't sound like anything else being based on a different circuit as opposed to just a 909 or 808. Beyond that, I think for me, the ALM stuff, a sampler that was very fast.
Yes,
I think there are videos up for that as well. Multi-voice sampler, not too bogged down and heavy on features, really quick just to get some loops going and some sounds into a system. I thought that was really good. And I think the thing that really stood out the most was the Chaos Devices Odessa additive oscillator, which first caught my attention thinking that sounds different to everyone else's booth as I walked past. It wasn't Acid House, it wasn't Stranger Things, it wasn't all the other things I heard several hundred times in various guises. It's just because it would do full proper additive synthesis around 512 harmonics, I think. It's very, very different sound. And I really like what those guys are doing. So sonically, that was the first kind of ears pricking up. This is very different to other shows. But yeah, I guess way too much good stuff to go to.
It was difficult, wasn't it? It was really difficult. You're absolutely right, because there was so much. I mean, there is. I think we've done over 70 videos so far. There's going to be more. I did a few Meet the Makers and what have you, interview with Andrew Kwang and Vlad Krimer from Soma Laboratories, really interesting guy. Chris Randall from Audio Damage, brilliant interview with him. He's a really fascinating guy. I can't wait to get that one up there. And Tom Carpenter also from Analog Solutions. I mean, there's a ton of that kind of stuff there that was just... And like I said, people have held off. They didn't release previous to this, which may mean that some of those things were a bit more ready than we often see at these kind of events, because they didn't do it at NAMM, and obviously Messer's not really kind of part of their world anymore. I'm not so sure. I just think, you know, it's all good stuff. Jamie, did you get a chance? Oh, sorry, yeah. Go for it,
Yeah,
Ben.
just one quick one. I think the UK guys were not to rule anyone out, but I think the UK guys were really kind of had a strong range of products this time as well. Alan at AGH with the Mega Swarm, you know, big kind of unison detune multi-oscillator thing from a single input was great. The Abstract Data stuff, he's always just got a really tight, refined, small rig, making great patches of music on not much gear, and he's really engineering his products to suit problems as a kind of performer and musician, so that really appeals. As soon as he starts telling you what something is, you're like, right, okay, I can ditch about half a row of modules now, because this will do this one musical functional thing. And as I said as well, an Instruo, the guys up in Glasgow, they had some really strong products too.
Yeah, that sort of stuff is coming up. I mean, from an outside point of view, Jamie, what did you... You know, I mean, I'm not expecting you to say that you watched every single video or even a small proportion on them. I know you're a busy guy, but, you know, what was the sense that you got coming out from that show? Was there a buzz out? Because we were in the bubble. It was a buzz there, but I don't know whether, you know... I mean, the views of the videos was enormous, so I'm guessing there is a bit of a buzz out about this show. I mean, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I saw like the Prophet X and like, you know, this Polyend thing. The modular stuff slightly goes over my head. Only because I've kind of made a pact with myself not to get involved with Eurorack, just for my own sanity and for my marriage.
I made the same pact.
And much as I am deeply tempted, it's sort of like I deliberately file it in the naughty category of my brain. But I was curious that he put out a little module, because I love those guys, and also the Bastel. Yeah, that tuning thing sort of seemed pretty odd. Like it can tune stuff. Did I catch that right?
I didn't see that again. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And those guys
the way that what that does is you play a MIDI note C into it, and it will listen back to the oscillator pitch, and it doesn't adjust the oscillator, it will readjust the CV it's sending out to go, this should be this note, and it's not, so I'm going to send a different voltage until it is right.
Does it do custom scaling? Does it do custom scaling as well, so that if your scaling's off, you can fix it?
I'm not sure it goes quite the full Expert Sleepers route, where it will.
That would be really
good.
The
Expert Sleepers one works is it plays every MIDI note from lowest to highest, and we'll do like a custom curve. If it kind of doesn't track higher pitches well or low, it will shelve and adjust. They mention different intonations and things though, so that may be quite a creative tool for people. And a quick one for tuning all this stuff, which can be a bit of a pain.
Yeah, you kind of want a one-button solution for that sort of thing, don't you? If you can.
Yeah.
We actually, while we mentioned the Prophet, because the Prophet X was the first thing that I went to see, because it's a really big release, and that's part of the problem with Superbooth. There was so much stuff there. It's almost like, and the Prophet X, you know, which is a really incredible instrument. And we went to see Jerry Basserman. Before we start, I know there was a lot of comments. It's like, he was the first guy I saw on the first day of the show, and he had been sent a software update the night before, which had basically overwritten all his patches that he had prepared for his demo, but he very gamely jumped in. So I'm going to just throw this Jerry, so you were my first port of call here on the Dave Smith booth at Superbooth with the Prophet X, which is a really exciting thing. I mean, we were sneaked it at NAMM, but now it's here, right?
Yeah, there was the teaser on, I think, Friday, and then the announcement on May 1st, the Prophet X. Yeah, there was a little discussion there. Is it going to be X or 10? Prophet X will do it, Sequential. And when you look at it, it's a beautiful new synth from Dave Smith Instruments. I'm really proud to be here at Superbooth showing it. image.
Let me see if I can find some sounds. Now, Prophet X is quite interesting. It basically uses sample sources, which is done in conjunction with 8DO. It's got an SSD in it with 150 gigs of multi-samples that you can then do some really interesting stuff in terms of sample manipulation and then fire it all through the effects, combine it with the DCOs and all that kind of thing. And that it sounds really good. I mean, I heard it before at NAMM when Jerry had his sounds in it, and he played this demo where he starts with a piano and just turns it into something completely, absolutely different, totally. But there's some really cool things you can do. So you can maybe choose the lowest note of a piano, and then just go, actually, I'll have that across the entire keyboard. So you can pluck it out of the key group, and then do sort of granular stuff and modulate the loop point. I mean, there's loads of really interesting things. I don't know, Jamie, I'm coming to you because you mentioned it, and it's not a modular synth.
There you go, see? Right up my alley. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's pricey. It's a little bit naughty price-wise. And I had my eyes on that, because I'm a massive SP1200 dude, so I had my eyes on that assimilator, That's probably the one rack piece that sort of caught my attention the most, thinking, oh man, it's got to be good if Rossum's has done it, whatever. But obviously, Ben, I'm sure you know, but I've been curious. But I love my early ways of making music. I had an Akai S950 back in the day. That was everything to me. I did all my music with the sampler. So I'm just all about samplers. Even to this day, I still think it's probably the most potent sort of. I love working and manipulating samples, and I have a Prophet 2000, and like I love putting the analog filters on the samples, but it's a pain in the ass, that machine. It's showing its age. I don't love using it. I would love to have a machine that's really modern. Obviously, they're going to add user content on the samples. Yeah,
you can't sample with this keyboard. That should be pointed out.
Right, that's fine. It doesn't. That doesn't matter. I mean, it would be cool if you could put an input in and sort of capture stuff, but whatever. Electron do all that, don't they, for people who want that? And I like the idea that this is kind of a way to sit at a machine and just sort of sculpt and just kind of enjoy the experience of sitting at a machine, because I love things like that, self-contained.
But that's probably a good lead on saying that to the Omnisphere thing, that 2.5, because that was big news. I
was going to get onto that.
I'm sorry, I cut in then because I think that same thinking is what's informed this new Omnisphere 2.5.
Maybe so, yeah. Well, let me. I don't know, Ben. I don't know. Again, Prophet X, did you get a chance to hear that? I guess you were probably in Modular World, so. But it's a big news. I think it's about $4,000. So it's it's a chunky beast of a thing.
Yeah, it's one of those I would have liked to have gone to try it out. In my head, my keys playing's not up to scratch enough for me to want something like that. And I can appreciate it for what it is. And I had some friends saying, make sure you go and play that. That would be more suited to the product, and just didn't get a chance.
That is the way it goes in this sort of environment, isn't it? Quite often.
Yeah.
Oh, just want to say a quick shout out to Synth Anatomy in the chat room. We ended up sharing a room together. Spent quite a lot of time with him. Tom, hello there, Mr. Synth Anatomy. Thank you very much for bailing us out for our last night so we could afford a beer and a tram home. He was very kind. Yes, but this is another thing. So Omnisphere, Spectrasonics, obviously one of the show sponsors for our coverage, much appreciated. And I'll play a little bit of it because this is a 30-minute video. Hey, Eric Persing here at the Spectrasonics booth at Superbooth. Your first time, right?
First time at Superbooth. Yeah, very excited.
Oh, it's a great show. You're going to love it. And you're showing something big and new. I mean, this is kind of unusual for you guys.
Yes, it is. It is. And this is kind of the perfect place to show it. It's the very first time we're introducing it. And that is, we have a new version of Omnisphere. That's version 2.5. And has an incredible new feature called hardware synth integration.
Okay.
And so what this is the biggest problem with software synths, as I'm sure you well know, is that you can't touch them and you can't interact with them. And so hardware synths have that immediacy, and it's just a completely different workflow. So the world's kind of always been divided into the software synths versus the hardware synths. people, which is kind of ridiculous. And so
I'm going to just fast forward here because I think
if you're HW and you pull that up and then you select what synth that you want to control Omnisphere with.
Right.
And so now I've got a full control from the Voyager. So this is a very old synth, but all the features of the Voyager are now working in Omnisphere. So obviously cut off, things like that, resonance. But I've got all the different oscillator controls. So
you're creating kind of a virtual architecture that matches the hardware synth.
Exactly, that's right. So we've that's the other big thing about this update is that we've doubled the power of Omnisphere. So we've gone from 2 layers to 4 layers. So we now have, and we've doubled the amount of modulation.
So yeah, big update from them and a free update as well. And to begin with, people were kind of like, I don't get it. But then when you see it in action, and Eric is, about the best guy to display it because he's just so brilliant at sound design. So you can utilize, I think there are 20 synths currently supported. They're going to add more. A lot of the Dave Smith ones, the Moog stuff. And you essentially just have one-for-one control. And if there's a control in there that perhaps doesn't really make sense, like an external input or whatever, they map it to something else and use and so and this is what I put to them. So essentially you're improving on the GUI of the hardware synth. A synth manufacturer can't do that because they've made them and they've shipped them, whereas you can just go, yeah, let's use this knob for this instead, but everything else remains the same. It was a really interesting idea. I don't know, did you get a chance to see? I mean, it's a long video.
Yeah.
And I really worked out my biceps holding that camera up for that long, I can tell you.
Yeah, because I saw Eric, and Eric was keen to tell me about it, and I was going, but does it support the sledge? And he said, oh, not yet, but I'll make it support it for you. So I'm going to hold him to that, because I thought the sledge would be a brilliant interface for that. But they said they're going to do that. That they're going to, I think it's going to, they got 20 now, but they're going to kind of keep on adding.
The boutiques they've got, notably, which a lot of people will have.
Boutiques.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a really clever idea, this is, because I think I can just, relating it to my own experiences of over the last 6-7 years of going away from software and more into hardware. But, when it comes to a lot of production work, that in the box stuff is just unbeatable for certain things, and just that way that it brings the two together in a very interesting way. So again, you need your synth, your own particular synth, to be covered by it, because this isn't like a kind of auto map type of situation.
No,
it's
something
they're going really.
Well, they are, and I should point out they're also working on the control law for all of the. It's not just a one-to-one thing. It's not like 0 and 127. They're scaling it, and they're also doing. If you press effects, it might instantiate the effects. There's lots of stuff like that.
Instantiate. Yeah. It does things that you just your general MIDI mapping stuff doesn't have the ability to do. Like, as you say, instantiating effects or modulation routings. Just by turning a knob will create that routing. So very clever, and I didn't see that coming, and I think it's a brilliant move of Spectrasonics to do that.
Yeah, and
the boutique thing is super smart, because that, when would you want to use Omnisphere? Like for me, for example, I've got all these synths here. If I go and travel, go to LA, do a co-write or whatever, and then it was like, oh man, let's get a synth going, and that's the perfect time. You want to have a portable synth, so you've got your portable rig, you've got a portable synth, but you've actually got something that's actually hands-on. Everyone can get a bit of a buzz on, because otherwise then you've got to map everything to a controller. It should be fast, but it's not fast. Everyone wants things to be like super quick and immediate, so that's cool. It's a great idea. It's going
to be interesting to see which of the boutique synths wins the Omnisphere war, because they're all going to be like a different experience, aren't they? You're going to get a different, one of them is probably one of them.
Well, yeah, I should also. We need to point out that not only is it one-to-one control, but the waveforms for a lot of those synths have been put in. So you're controlling essentially a virtualization to some degree of the synth that is one-to-one. It's not just I'm controlling Omnisphere, I'm controlling the same architecture and the same waveforms in many cases that this synth has. So the System 8 was a really good integration, and he demonstrates that and says, look, this is what's happening to the wave, and we've made it happen in real time. So That is another thing to bear in mind. It's not just a kind of, now I'm just controlling all of Omnisphere. I mean, controlling the elements of Omnisphere that match up to this synth, if you see what I mean.
Do you think they added because they wouldn't have been able to do that due to sort of just your typical sort of Minimoog Model D Type 3 oscillator? So many synths have got, say, 3 oscillators that their 2 oscillator system wouldn't have worked, would it? So they probably had to expand the engine in order to accomplish.
Yeah, maybe so. So there's those layers. Synth Anatomy actually says in the chat room they've also modelled the OB6 filter in there, so the OB6 is a really good emulation as well. It's an interesting concept. I know, Ben, is it? Again, sitting there with a load of modulars behind you, but in terms of making music and kind of getting on with it, I don't know if you use Omnisphere at all. I mean, lots of people do because it's just got such a massive amount of sounds.
I haven't used it for years. They had it at the university I was at, sounded great, and just not something I went into. But since then, I've used a lot of software, and as Gaz said, for production work, you just can't beat the immediacy of the software. 2 things come up though that I think are really interesting. If it's going to model the gear as well to some degree, that potentially turns your mono synth into some real beast of a polysynth.
Yeah,
if it's
absolutely.
Yeah. And also either doing that to create more layers of the same sound or of a different sound in Omnisphere. When you're wanting to layer up different parts, but you want an LFO that's moving a filter to get faster, so you're doing it on the synth and playing and jamming live, and as we all would with audio, then I guess chopping out the little kind of nice performances and transitions in the jam. They're all there on all the parts, and you can then send different MIDI to it to create chords. And yeah, I think that's a really, really good tool. That's quite exciting, really, because I almost get into the mentality of not turning a lot of the hardware on when I've got production work to do. It's too slow and takes too long, and if I've been jamming and it sounds great, and then I feel like I need to pull up some polysynth that's software, and I need to try and replicate it in automation or map it. Mapping MIDI controllers takes me long enough.
Yeah, it's just a complete creativity killer, isn't it?
It should be quick, but it's not. Yeah.
Well, it's the holy grail, isn't it?
100%.
It's sort of, it is actually the holy grail of, I mean, we've had various controllers, throughout music technology history. There was the Imposca 2 controller, which was a brilliant one-for-one thing, and completely changed the way that you react. That you forget it's a software synth. You just don't care. It's just like, I'm actually interfacing with some hardware, and that was in many ways way ahead of its time. But also, one-for-one, it didn't work with. I mean, you could map it to other things, but those mappings, because they're set with the synth it comes with, it's not like what you do like in Logic is you might go, I used to use this, I used to use KS4 because it had lots of knobs on it and I'd map it all, but the thing is I'd open another session, and if I hadn't saved it in my default, I'd have to do it all over again. And it's just I mean, I know there are better workarounds and ways around that now, but yeah, it's a brilliant move that actually takes a while to kind of figure out, I see where this is actually going, and it's brilliant move.
Do you think they'll do some partnerships? You're going to get Spectrasonic and Roland going into a package deal, so you get like Omnisphere plus a boutique?
That would make sense, wouldn't it? Would make sense.
I don't see Spectrasonics doing that as a company. They're very closed. They're sort of,
Yeah, I don't know, but it would make sense.
Interesting company.
I mean, dealers might bundle it, I suppose. That's the other possibility, but would make sense.
Yeah, they're going to ultimately sell more hardware synths, so the hardware manufacturers should be thankful. And I've got a Voyager, and I must admit I never use it. I just don't really love it. So maybe I'll crack it out for the software. But then it's a big beast, Then you've got to move this big old chunk. Right? Versus, I would actually prefer to have like a little boutique in front of me, and then I'd use that. So
that's where the smart stuff is. Yeah. But that was the thing that was, I put it to Eric. I said, in many ways, you're actually improving on the synth. Like what I said, with the Sub 37. So does that mean now if you put more than one oscillator into the mixer, it doesn't crack up quite as much, and you can back off that burn because it's almost impossible to make a duophonic sound not distorted on a Sub 37, whereas you can obviously on their version. So it's like that sort of all gets a bit mad. Yeah, interesting. Okay, right. God, there's so much more, isn't there? There's I tell you what, I'm going to do this one next because this is just a bit of an interesting one.
Hey, Mike.
No, it's not. It's not that one.
Hey, Eric Persing.
Saw that coming.
This one. Here it is.
Sonicstate. Good to see you as always.
Amazing.
Eric Norlander and the.
Check this out.
It's a true analog 2-oscillator monophonic synthesizer
from IK Multimedia. There, that's kind of the headline. That's the headline right there. That was a big one. I mean, the big news about that is it's a synth from IK Multimedia. Someone who's, I mean, they do make hardware, but they've never made any analog synths as far as I can tell. Kind of, it's like a cross between a Volca and something a bit bigger. It's kind of, 'cause it's got a little sequencer in it and whatnot. Ben, did you check that out?
Yeah, $199. Right, that's the sub headline, if you like. Really cheap. It reminded me of the Waldorf Blofeld with the kind of 4 program knobs and then buttons. And
Matrix.
It looked a little grey to me at some angles, being a little bit judgmental. But I got a great demo from David Mancini from Soundmachines, the Italian company that developed the product for IK Multimedia. He had one at his stand and he was bouncing around between Soundmachines upstairs and IK downstairs. It sounded great. They'd clearly put a lot of thought into the actual synthesis engine and given you a few extra little things in there to just push it beyond what you would expect from a 199.
Okay.
They had the nice performance buttons underneath the matrix, which would just auto route the LFO. So there was one called WAR, which would just send LFO to filter. There was a tremolo, which would just send the LFO to the VCA. It just felt quite performable and it felt quite nice to use, even if, as I said, it was just a little bit flat, kind of grey looking to me.
Membrane buttons.
Oh yeah, on the stage. Yeah. I can see why they didn't make it, glaring bright red on black or something, but I did wonder how easy it would be to use not under a lot of light.
And battery powered stuff. I mean, for me, it felt a little bit like that. If only the LFO had gone further into audio rates, or there was some cross mod or something, it just felt like it was missing some, just one or two, or even one or two, just sort of slightly, more modern synthesis features. I don't know. You were talking about portability, Jamie. This is pretty portable, right?
Not my thing.
No.
No, I'd much rather have an OP1 or something. That's sort of like much more my speed, or an SK1 for that matter.
Well, fair enough.
SK1, I'd rather have an SK1 than that. But it reminds me of, remember there's a time when Roland put out, it was sort of Sound Canvas era.
Oh yeah.
They went to this really weird office-y vibe, and I had an audio to MIDI converter that kind of looked like this. It was like a really unsexy period for Roland, and I don't know, just the membranes, it's just not, I don't know.
It's not doing it for you.
Sorry, no.
I think they will sell a boatload of them because they have the channels for the budget stuff. I need to spend a bit more quality time with it, I guess. On first look, it didn't make me go, ooh, actually, that's better than I expected. I mean, it was sort of what I expected and no more. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? That kind of price point there's not a lot around it, is there? The boutiques are just a little bit more money than that. The Volcas are quite a bit less than that. So it's it's an interesting gambit really going for that sort of price point. I think certainly feature set is really good for the money, and I think I expect it's going to be a lot of people's first synth. That's
I expect so too.
Yeah, you're right.
I expect so too.
That's nice. Yeah, and I like the idea.
To that end, I think
make
I think
a little
it'll be a brilliant synth for people.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's good for the industry though. Because anything that sort of acts as a sort of we know what it's like, don't we?
A gateway.
Once you get one synth, it's the gateway.
It's the start. It's the starting
start. So join us.
Yeah, I guess so. I suppose that's true. Okay, right. Anybody got any particular choices that they want to throw in? Because from it. Okay. Well, let's. Yep. I'll see if I can find it in the list.
Quickly. I sort of wanted to clarify a little bit of my complete passion for Retrokits, because I just keep, I love what they're doing. I've been going on about it for ages and ages, and about USB hosting devices, and I think they've brought out the nicest USB host that I've seen.
The RK-005.
The RK-005, yeah, and it's the fact that it's okay. Yeah. So the Kenton one's been around for a while, which is.
Oh, Gaz, we're losing you network-wise. I can probably pick up there while Gaz maybe.
It's other.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. Yes, RK-005 is a little tiny thing. It's got a USB in and a USB out and a MIDI. I think it's a MIDI out for clock, and it works both. And you can put a hub on it, and you could then put more than one device on the hub and feed that through to, you know, your source computer it's smart stuff. Sorry, Gaz, I interjected because you lost your audio. Are you back now?
Yeah. Well, I think you just said it there that. The fact that you could put a hub on there, I've a lot to do with this fella. You know, the old OP1. There we are, Nick. You can do an OP1 in the show notes now, just to get all them like 100,000 extra views.
Yeah.
It still manages to do. But the fact that devices which don't have any DIN on there. Long live the MIDI DIN. Long live the MIDI DIN. This kind of, brings the MIDI DIN.
While we're on the subject of Retrokits, I would also like to point out this is the best swag I've ever had in my life. Right? Okay, so they had a kit. They made me. This is an RK-03, I think it is, isn't it? Which is the
004.
004. One to many, many to one, or cross patching, clock, and all sorts of stuff. And they made me a special one, so that they said you have to open it and have a look, and it's just. This is.
That's quality.
Isn't that brilliant?
Lovely, yeah.
Because I got this award from Future Music Radio, I think, for last year, and I was thinking when I was going to interview Andrew Hang, I was thinking about wearing it like a medallion. I mean, I love him, but I just thought it would. I wonder if it would have made things awkward, because it might have done. I didn't. I'd like to point out, and he's a really nice guy, and there's no animosity whatsoever. I was just being a bit mischievous with that one. So yeah, that's a good one, Gaz. Yeah, the Retrokits thing, definitely.
It's really good.
Ben, if I said, I know you mentioned all the modular stuff. Is there anything specific? I mean, you can go back to one of those. Is there one thing that you really just went, yeah, I actually really want that, or I think that's a great product, possibly the best product of the show?
It's hard to say best products of the show. I mean, I've had quite a lot of it for some time, investing some of it. So the kind of instant, God, wow, I've got to have this. And maybe one off some of the ones that maybe deserve it the more. One thing that was really interesting for Modular and a wider audience was it had a ton of I/O. I think was the Soundmachines Arches controller, which I think is still on Kickstarter for a few weeks.
Oh yeah.
And they redone the touch strip light style controller with tons of CV, gear outputs, there's media USB.
Oh, we're getting a bad network. I wonder if it's me or you.
I've not seen on a controller before.
Hold on, I'm sorry about this. It's is that this guy? Did you say Arches? That thing.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That really you know what that reminds me of. Without the CV control to the right hand side, that reminds me of there was an early. Well, it's very booklet like, but there was a MIDI Man controller that never got made. That was a bit like that. Anyway, that's it.
Totally, man. And what about that weird box that had like sandpaper on it and stuff? The sort of it just had a piezo mic in it.
Oh, the modular field, the field kit.
Idea.
Coma field kit.
It should be a DIY kit because it's clearly just like really simple to make your own. But a nice idea. Yeah. Good bit of Blue Peter. Sort of Blue Peter meets.
Yeah, no, that's true. I should also this is the other thing that came up, which was obviously
Mike,
this guy. We'll put this up, and the MS-101, but this is the big one. Another really big one.
Pre-production, or what's this?
It is still made a handmade prototype, but yeah, it's already feature complete. So we decided to show it. Oli promised the Audi like 5 years ago.
So. Behringer got a hell of a lot of exposure during this show. They just made a full-size Odyssey, which I'm not. Now, the difference is, I mean, basically, it's a model of the Korg Odyssey, because it's got the 3 filter revisions, but it's also got a little sequencer in it, which is a dead ringer of the Minilog sequencer, which I think is perhaps a bit cheeky. But it's also got a single Clark Technic effects unit in it with multiple algorithms that you can store and record patches for the synth doesn't, but the sequencer and the effects do, and that's quite neat. And I think that's kind of cool. And obviously it's full size, but it seems like a really odd thing to do. I don't know about you, but I mean, it's probably going to be cheaper than the Korg Odyssey, but you can buy that. It's there. It's been made. It's kind of done. People have said it sounds pretty close to the original or is like the original. Seems like a really weird world, that one. I don't know if anyone else feels. And that for me, I mean, I get the 808 because Roland said we're not making one, whereas the Odyssey is kind of being made, and I didn't really understand that. Yeah, I know what you thought about peculiar. That, Ben. Do you think do you think it's just a sort of whimsical thing, or do you think it's something a bit? There's more to it, because it feels quite an aggressive thing to do in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember Uli saying it years, 5+ years back that he was going to do it, and I can't remember if he said it before Korg announced they were doing it, or after, or at the same time, to kind of steal some thunder. It feels very different being a product that is currently available in a very similar guise. It's not the boutique digital 808, and then the different Behringer 808 clone, and the 808's been done to death. Yeah, it feels very different. I know. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but the friends and other industry people that was the one that got them quite angry. They've been quite open about the clones, and this one's caused a lot of heated debate, shall we say.
I suppose in many ways, that's the purpose of it as well. As we know, Uli is a self-confessed chief disruptor, so I suppose that's another reason for it. I don't, Jamie. Have you got an Odyssey? Because the Odyssey was a real classic synth, certainly in British pop music. It was like the punk synth and the gateway for many people. It was first really affordable back then at Poly, so it's got a lot of love for it, I suppose.
I loved it. Yeah, I remember there's a bloke that had one when I started making techno and stuff. I couldn't believe how good it was. I just sampled it loads. And but yeah, never had a chance to have one. But this will only be $300. So
well, we don't know the price, but yeah, there's a possibility it might. Yeah, I suppose we don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did have a play of the new Odyssey in the shop here in Nashville, and it felt okay. Sometimes I have a bit of a problem with the key beds. They don't feel that great, a bit squidgy. So maybe they'll disquidgify the key bed, and it might actually play.
Yeah, maybe. Well, there's also a desktop version now that Korg make, so that might be the one to go for.
That actually does look pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, there's so much choice out there. If I was going to go down that road, I'd probably get into the Eurorack dimensions. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is a bit of a naughty move, but I mean, like you say, if you are a disruptor, then disrupt away.
But how many Stratocasters were at NAMM this year? Very, like all sorts of identical to Fender Stratocasters. It's a little bit like that, isn't it? With it being an old product. So, I mean, my interest is in the new stuff more than all this old stuff anyway. So I like the Midas Behringer approach of updating things a lot rather than this, So I don't know. I think maybe old stuff is fair cop, possibly.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think the difficulty is it's a bit like, there's a similar sort of ethic, isn't there, where it's some of the old guys who are now really old and perhaps not doing very well wealth-wise. They're the guys that put a lot into this, and they're sort of getting nothing, and that feels bad. If Uli said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this, but what I'm going to do is, I mean, unfortunately, I've forgotten the name of the chap who was one of the Perlman, wasn't it? Who's now passed, I think, or was very unwell. I bet I've got that right, because that would be a terrible
Alan
mistake.
Alan,
yeah, that means that there's God, Gaz.
Amazing.
Hold on. Look at that.
Look at that.
What the hell's going on there? There must be some kind of weird. You've got a swarm of bees on your face.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Incredible.
Make it stop. Why has it done that?
That is really weird.
What's it done that for?
That must be some sort of
Stop. Make it stop.
That's the poster frame.
No,
it's like some old dwarf effect after that party where he was in Seabit.
Yeah, you're...
Oh!
It's back.
You just wiped it off.
That's really
What
weird.
is that?
Did you just
What's
wipe that
going
off?
on? Yeah,
I'll tell you what it is.
incredible.
I'll tell you what it is. It's compression because of all the detail on your beard. When you put your hand across it, it doesn't have to make so much work of it, so it clears the. That's a weird.
that's the weirdest thing ever.
That is really weird. Okay, we've done oh yeah, this was a.
Superbooth 2018.
Synthstrom Deluge.
Sonicstate. Day
oh my
2.
God, it's
We're
so
here
late. Sorry about this. I didn't realise what the time was.
Synthstrom, and we're looking at the Deluge now. It's version 2 is going to be coming out in June, and look at this. There's an arranger mode. Look at this.
Right. Very quickly, I didn't realise it was quite so late. It's how far we've gone. There's been so much to talk about. Synthstrom Deluge, really interesting thing. I mean, I know it's been out for a while. It's been kind of bubbling away. Version 2 seems to add a lot of stuff. But this looks like, it's almost like, does it do this? Yes, it does, and this, and this, and this as well. It seems to be the most ridiculously fully featured standalone battery pack. Is it battery pack? Oh yeah, it's a battery pad as well. Is it this? Yeah, it does that. It plays back stems. It does what? It's got synths in it. I mean, it was mental. Absolutely, you did the thing. I mean, you know, I could see that you were just kind of getting a little bit overexcited.
Well, I mean, you just take it for granted that those desktop units have these kind of limitations that 4-bar maximum pattern, for instance, that type of thing. Like this, though, it can go from 1 bar to 10,000 bars. The BPM can go from 1 BPM to 10,000 BPM. You know, it's kind of that kind of stuff. It's like you don't expect that kind of, you know, that sort of thing in a box like this. We're so used to these restrictions. So, gosh, you know, it's built-in microphones. You can sample directly in. No, from New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah.
Now, we thought that we were trying to work out what other tech company came from New Zealand and couldn't think at the time. But Serato are also from New Zealand.
There we go. It's like that. It's like that tour game you play when you're touring in obscure countries in around the world, and you've got to come up with hit records from that country. That's always a good one. They're difficult. Holland, that's a tricky one. Anyone got any Hollands? I've got one for you. Well, I'll Golden Earring. There was that one.
Yeah.
There we go. Anyway, that's enough. So, Ben.
Drive it on, we're on the wheel.
And Gaz can do the entire rendition. But this looks really cool, Ben. I mean, because we got, I guess, you know, you've got the MPC-X, we've got Circuit, but this just seems to kind of blow all of that away, but with its own way of doing things as well. Did you get a chance to, I mean, have you heard about this thing?
I'd heard about it before the show and was told, why are we all sleeping on this? Why do none of us know about it? This thing's amazing. And that was Jeremy from Red Means Recording, the YouTube channel. Wow. Just kind of messaging a few people, just said, you've all got to check this out. This is ridiculous. And yeah, it instantly kind of shot right up the radar, as a few friends did that at once, just saying we've all been sleeping on this thing. And it really goes kind of next level for its size and appearance. So,
and
yeah,
price $900. Yeah. I mean, that's just...
It seems like a ton of stuff for it. And apparently sounds great, which, you know, actually sounds very good as well. It isn't just everything's thrown in with a kitchen sink.
Yeah.
I just sort of saw it for a second. Isn't it just a lot of buttons?
Well, no, it's a DSP. I mean, it is a lot of buttons, but it's got disk streaming, it's got sampling, it's got...
How do you talk to it, though?
Well,
how does one interact with the Deluge?
Well, so what happens is
buttons,
digital bits.
It's via buttons. Each one of those, there's 128 pads on the left, and then I think is it another 16.
16, yeah,
on the right. So the ones on the right double as kind of like mute and solo buttons, that whatever. But there's shortcuts virtually on every pad, and then there's like an 8-digit LED at the top. But really, when you see it working, there's a couple of rotating knobs as well. So you really are kind of hitting pads, spinning knobs. Now, the guy who was demonstrating it was absolutely, you know, he was brilliant at it. Clearly, yeah, he was clearly brilliant at it. You know, he knew the way around it. But I thought, like, you can get like a full scrolling arranger on there, like a Cubase type scrolling arranger, like with those little cubes all moving along, which I've never seen on a device like this before. But I think the workflow looks really nice on it. I know a lot of people are complaining about that little screen, but I love a screenless workflow myself. So
well, yeah, Circuit
really
doesn't have that. And to be fair, little screen. Well, it's even littler than Electron. Electron is a pretty obscure way of working, but people seem to dig that. So maybe it's a contender. I mean, looking at that again, I have to try and check one out. Although it'll be one of those reviews where you just think, I haven't got 2 months to get to know this thing so well.
Can I just say a final thing on this? So it's been around for about 2 years now, but the functionality has grown and grown and grown across, I think, about 4 major big updates. Now, the thing that makes this quite special is those updates have almost been created by the user base. They really have been incredibly responsive to the users. So the users have essentially turned it into what it's becoming by them, really reaching to the community to decide on, how it should go. He really wanted to emphasize that as well, which I thought was really nice, because, that kind of Roland or whatever, not listening to you, this is the opposite. This really is what people have wanted it to become. So that's cool.
You'd expect that out of New Zealanders, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what stereotype you're referring to.
They just seem really, really. I mean, they just seem really approachable. If you were going to be a hippie from New Zealand, I'd probably be right up for hanging with New Zealand.
Well, there we go. Wow. I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's more we could cover. I mean, that's the thing about this.
So much.
There were so many things there. I did get. This was waiting for me when I got back, so I've got the Pittsburgh Audio Voltage 3900. What's it called? Volt. Microvolt 3900. There we go. And it came with a T-shirt, which I thought I'd wear because my T-shirt was a bit shabby. And as I said, I want to say thank you to all of the people that came up and said hi and took photos and all that sort of thing. I'm sorry I was so shabbily dressed. I'll try and be a bit more chipper next time. There's something about a sharp dressed man in that situation that helps portray the right public image rather than a sort of crumpled 50-something kind of shuffling about the place with lots of wires hanging off him.
Do we know if Superbooth is happening at the same time, same place next year? Have they made any announcement yet?
No, not a sausage. Not just.
No.
I went to the shop Schneidersladen on Monday after the event, and it will be at the same place, but no dates confirmed. So it will definitely be.
That's good.
I would just recommend to everybody, like I said at the start of the show, as soon as it's announced, just
make your plans.
Book it, and come, because it really is. It's the meeting of the tribe, really, and
absolutely that is true.
I think you can say.
Yeah, no, Jamie, we were talking about it actually. We were saying, wouldn't it be really cool if we could just get all the Sonic Talk gang there and do a special or something? That would just be.
Did you see Richard Devine?
Stage. We want a stage. Stage.
Sorry.
Stage.
Yeah, shush, guys.
Stage. We want a stage.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Jamie. What was that?
I noticed that Richard Devine did a show, and
yes,
me and Richard are old friends. So I always
I did bump into him. I was trying to do an interview at the Yamaha booth, and he ran late, and then I went off to get something and came back because he was running late, and then he was there, and it didn't work. But I talked to him briefly, and then we said, well, look, why don't you go and do this interview with these other people? And he was absolutely out of it because he basically come from Mexico City, gone home for 8 hours to do his laundry, and then flown to Berlin to do these shows. And he just said that this is kind of one of the toughest schedules I've ever had. He just said it was absolutely out of it. So I don't think he really wanted to be on camera, but fair enough. There you go. But yes, I did see him, and then we posted a news item of him with the montage and the. Because he's done a whole load of new presets for the performances for the montage, because he did a lot of the sound design for that, which is an insanely complex synthesizer, and his modular. I posted it on the show, the site today, and it sounded really good.
True master, man. Richard
totally
is next level.
I know. He is the king of.
How
modular.
Does he do it? I see every day he posts on Instagram another incredible modular patch. I'm like, I literally don't know how he does it time wise.
I'm not sure. Do you think maybe he has people working for, or maybe it's just one massive patch that you could just change? What he does is he just changes the colours of the patch leads and then sort of changes a few input CV voltages and changes the clock division, and it's kind of, who could tell? That sounds an awful lot like that other one. you know, because it's so complicated. You know, it's sort of maybe not. I'm a bit unkind. Anyway, that is it for this week. Thank you ever so much. I just wanted to finish you off with there were a couple of images from our last. This was remember this? I don't think you were there, DivKid. At least I don't recall it. Ben, this was at the Kick In, which is this bar here, which we ended up because they kicked us out of the hotel, and that's the last shot of the thing. We were pretty tired and emotional by that time, but this is the part. After this, Gaz then went to the party that resulted in him in not making the plane home. So that's why it happened, folks. Thank you, everybody. I know it's running a bit late today. Thanks ever so much for watching. Thanks for hanging in there. Thank you to iZotope for the continued sponsorship of the show. Don't forget, if you want to win Neutron 2, mix masking meter is the hashtag we're looking for. One word on the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's mix masking meter as one word. Neutron 2 @Sonicstate @iZotope Inc. Blah, blah, blah. Right, don't forget Eurovision Song Contest this weekend, eh?
Oh God, no!
Go on the Dutch.
Yeah, whatever. I always like to watch it. It's great for a bit of live tweeting because you could get so snarky with it without feeling like you're offending anybody because nobody cares. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Jamie Liddell, who's there in Nashville. Check out his Jamie Liddell Music, where you have Hanging Out with Audiophiles podcast. Who's your latest guest?
It's Kimbra.
Okay.
Kimbra, the New Zealander. You know, continuing the New Zealand, friendly New Zealander.
Incredibly talented.
She's very talented and really fascinating. So yeah, do check out Kimbra. She's ace.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
I do some tape phasing as well, Gaz, with the Nakamichi.
Oh, awesome!
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, check that.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie.
$30 tape.
Wow, nice. And also, Mr. DivKid Ben Wilson, thank you for joining us. I know your family credits must be running low after being out of town for so long. So, does your child remember what you look like? Is your wife still friendly?
Yeah, child was amazed to see my face in the morning. I can hear her thrashing around like crazy in the bath at the minute. So, just really quickly, just things. I'm going on a show with Bo Beeks tomorrow evening, live at 8 p.m. UK on his channel, and then Sunday 8 p.m. my channel, talking with Kim Bjorn from Push Turn Move about Patch and Tweak with Chris Meyer, that's also involved with that book.
Excellent. So that's YouTube DivKid video, right?
You're best finding me on, I guess, Facebook at DivKid and Twitter, and I'll post links.
Brilliant.
There are other channels I'm jumping on, but yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben. No problem. And also, Mr. Gaz Williams, thank you for joining us as well. I'm sorry about that infestation that you seemed to have earlier. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But
it's the weirdest thing ever, too. Yeah. But thanks. I mean, I was going to apologise for trying to cut in all the time, but it's because I was so excited. There's so much to talk about, isn't there, with Superbooth. So, but yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, see you next time.
Right, we'll see you all, folks. That's it. That's end of Sonic Talk episode 532, I think it is, isn't it? Yes. See you later. Bye now.